Welcome to MaxxEcu Training Part 22. This video we're going to be taking a look at working with our acceleration enrichment feature. This is going to allow us to characterize the momentary burst of airflow as we have entering our engine when we're giving rapid throttle movements. The main fuel table is going to be characterizing our steady state operation and our steady state fuel delivery. This is going to allow us to characterize, again, these throttle movements and these bursts of airflow. So we're going to be taking a look at how acceleration enrichment works in this video, understanding the tables and various aspects for programming, and making sure that you know exactly what to do in order to implement this feature right within your calibration process. We're going to have a lot to learn, so let's jump into our video so we can check this out.
Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at working with our acceleration enrichment tuning within our MaxxEcus. The acceleration enrichment can be thought of as a fuel modifier. This is going to be the same kind of concept or idea when we're taking a look at our intake air, our baro, or our warm-up enrichment tables, where those we're adding an additional amount of fuel or subtracting an additional amount of fuel against our main fuel and airflow model we have going on within our max. So it's going to be adjusting our injector pulse width to get our fuel delivery a bit more consistent. That's the same concept as we have here with acceleration enrichment. However, this is going to apply when we have various amounts of throttle inputs as we're driving around. So if we're giving throttle changes, the main fuel table can't characterize that, or the main VE table. Let's jump into the main table and let's talk about this real quick so we can break this down conceptually so we understand exactly what's going on here when we're tuning with our acceleration enrichment. So going here into the side of our navigation window, we're going to move down here under tuning, and then we're going to find we have our fuel table. Now we've covered this extensively in several other videos here, but we're going to just go and refresh it again for this video. The main VE fuel table represents the estimated amount of airflow that's entering our engine. We know in a mass airflow sensor that'll directly measure it. Within this table, we're going to be calculating or estimating it. So this table here will allow us to figure out the estimated airflow only under steady state operating conditions, meaning we don't have rapid throttle changes as we're driving around. So if we're taking a look and breaking down this table into separate sections of operation, we'll find at idle, which is typically going to be in this range right here, our throttle is generally going to be shut, or we're not going to be giving it any gas. And wherever the throttle plate is parking itself at, that's going to be having a steady amount of airflow entering the engine. We can properly characterize how much airflow that is based on working with our VE values here. Now, when we're talking about part throttle cruise area, that's going to typically be from, let's say, 1600 all the way out to 7000, from -3 here all the way to full engine vacuum. This is where we spend the majority of our time driving in cruise area of operation. Now in this situation, our throttle inputs are generally going to be relatively low or small throttle inputs, and the airflow is going to be relatively steady as we're driving throughout this area right here. So we can use our volumetric efficiency table to estimate that steady state airflow while we're driving. Now when we're talking about our wide open throttle conditions, and let's say a naturally aspirated engine, that's going to be at 0 psi right here, so this row. This is going to be when we're at full throttle, so our throttle isn't moving. We are going to be having the most amount of airflow coming into the engine, and we can properly characterize that situation again with this row right here. Now when we're forced induction, same idea. When we go full throttle, we'll be at our positive manifold pressures, supercharged, turbocharged, and we'll find in that situation where we're at higher throttle angles, where the throttle isn't drastically changing or moving around rapidly, we can characterize the amount of airflow or estimate the amount of airflow that's entering the engine from our VE value in this area. Now the problem is going to come into play when we're driving around and we have different rates of throttle input. So we're no longer holding the throttle, let's say in our part throttle cruise area here at 5-10% throttle steady. We're going to find if we go from 5% throttle and we completely hit the throttle and go 100% in our part throttle right here, let's say we're going from part throttle to wide open throttle, we're going to find that it cannot characterize that throttle rate change or the difference in our throttle. What's going to happen, we have a momentary burst of airflow that we can't work with this table and characterize that. So we're going to find it runs lean because the amount of airflow or the burst of airflow is going to be much greater than what we estimate from our main VE table here. And the acceleration enrichment can be used to be able to increase the injector pulse width very briefly to match that momentary brief burst of airflow as our throttle changes. Now, the acceleration enrichment will take into play not only our throttle movement, but the rate of change in our throttle movement. It'll also take into play what engine speeds we're going to be at. Because if we take a look down here at something like idle, our throttle is relatively, the throttle angle or the throttle opening is relatively small, because in order to stay at this low engine speeds, we can't be introducing a lot of airflow into the engine. If we hit the throttle very rapidly and have a huge change in our throttle movement at low engine speeds, we're going to have a huge increase in airflow, because the throttle is going to be naturally closed a bit more when we're at low engine speeds. When we're at, let's say, 3,000, 4,000, something like this in this range, and we hit the throttle, our throttle plate's going to be open anywhere between 5 to 20%. And we'll find we're already letting a decent amount of airflow into the engine at this point, because we're operating and getting ourselves into this higher engine speed range. So if we're hitting the throttle the same rate or the same change as we found at our lower engine speeds, we wouldn't need as much fuel to be delivered, because the airflow wouldn't be as great, or the rate of change in our airflow wouldn't be as great. And if we're dealing with something like 6,000, 7,000 RPM, we're probably going to have our throttle open 30, 40, maybe even 50% to operate at this type of engine speed. At that throttle angle, if we're going and giving a whole bunch more throttle.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here. And you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.